When was the last time you achieved something significant without telling a soul beforehand? Take a moment. If you find yourself hesitating, it's not a sign of a poor memory. It's a symptom of our age, an unconscious submission to the most subtle trap of modern life, the performance of progress. We have become masters of the announcement, artists of the intention, broadcasting our ambitions across digital stages before the first brick is even laid. This act feels productive, like a vital first step, but it is often a misstep. It's the quiet whisper of a deeper psychological mechanism at play, one that trades the profound satisfaction of accomplishment for the fleeting warmth of premature applause, a transaction that leaves our most ambitious goals starved of the very energy they need to come to life. The silence you struggled to recall is not emptiness. It is a space of immense potential, a forgotten source of power. This compulsion to share is not merely a habit, it is a prison constructed from the invisible bars of social expectation. We post our gym memberships, our new diets, the book we plan to write, seeking a chorus of encouragement that we mistakenly believe will fuel our journey. Yet what we receive is a hollow echo. This premature validation is a psychological counterfeit, a trick our brain plays on us. The dopamine hit from the likes and comments mimics the feeling of actual achievement, creating a dangerous illusion of progress. We feel good about saying we will do something, and this satisfaction tragically siphons the motivational drive required for the hard, unglamorous work of doing it. We become actors playing the part of a successful person, forgetting that the role requires no real-world results, only a convincing performance for an audience that is perpetually distracted. But what if there were a different path, a quieter, more deliberate way forward, a rebellion not of loud protest, but of profound, strategic silence? This journey begins with a counterintuitive truth. The greatest revolutions are born not on the public stage, but in the private sanctuary of your own disciplined mind. It's the concept of silent action, a conscious withdrawal from the noise of external validation to cultivate an unshakable internal resolve. This isn't about hiding in fear or shame. It's about protecting a fragile seed of ambition from the torrential downpour of outside opinions and the corrosive effects of comparison. It is the deliberate choice to build your empire in the quiet, allowing your results and only your results to eventually make the noise. This is the promise of silence, a path back to the substance of achievement. The world you inhabit is a relentless theater of noise. Every screen is a stage, every profile a carefully curated performance of a life well lived. In this digital coliseum, we are both the gladiators and the crowd, fighting for affirmation, while simultaneously judging the spectacle of others. The architecture of this reality is designed to amplify every announcement, to celebrate every stated intention, creating an ecosystem where the appearance of effort is often more rewarded than the effort itself. This environment has subtly rewired our understanding of progress. We have forgotten the ancient wisdom that valued quiet cultivation over loud proclamation. The Stoics, the master builders, the great thinkers, they understood that the most profound work is done in the sanctity of solitude, where the foundations are laid deep beneath the surface, far from the critical or applauding eyes of the world. This isn't a new idea, but a forgotten one, an ancient power waiting to be reclaimed from the deafening roar of the present. The central character in this narrative isn't a person, but an idea, the principle of silent action. This principle is not about becoming a hermit or rejecting society. It is about becoming a strategist of your own energy and focus. Imagine your ambition as a flame. Every time you announce your plans, you are letting the wind of public opinion blow on it. Sometimes it fans the flame, but more often, it extinguishes it before it has a chance to grow into a steady fire. Silent action is the act of shielding that flame with your hands, nurturing it in a controlled environment until it's strong enough to withstand any storm. It is the conscious decision to let your work be the sole messenger of your intent. It transforms the exhausting marathon of managing perceptions into a focused sprint toward tangible outcomes, making your inner world the true source of your momentum. So why does this path feel so mysterious, so alien to our modern sensibilities? Because it requires a form of rebellion against our most basic social instincts. We are wired to seek belonging and validation from our tribe. Announcing our goals is a way of signaling our value and our aspirations to that tribe. To choose silence is to choose a temporary, self-imposed exile. It is to walk a path where the only encouragement comes from within, where the only benchmark for progress is the person you were yesterday. This requires a formidable level of self-trust and discipline. It is a quiet war waged against the incessant lure of the share button, a battle against the dopamine-fueled addiction to external approval that has come to define our generation. The mystery lies in its paradox. By seeking less validation, we become more valid. Consider the architect versus the billboard advertiser. The advertiser spends their energy crafting the perfect message, designing a compelling image to sell a promise. Their success is measured in visibility and public reception. The architect, however, works in quiet diligence. They are absorbed in blueprints, in the integrity of materials, in the mathematical precision of the structure. Their focus is not on the public's perception of the building to be, but on the unglamorous, repetitive, yet essential task of ensuring the foundation is flawless. The billboard may capture attention, but the building provides shelter, function, and permanence. This is the core difference. One life is built on a narrative, fragile and dependent on belief, while the other is built on reality, solid and self-evident. The path of silent action is the path of the architect of your own life. This journey into the heart of silent action is not a theoretical exploration. It is a practical guide. It is structured around 5 immutable rules, psychological principles that act as a compass to navigate away from the shores of noisy distraction and toward the continent of profound accomplishment. These are not mere tips or life hacks. They are fundamental shifts in mindset, each designed to dismantle the prison of external validation and build a fortress of internal strength. They will challenge your habits, question your motives, and ultimately offer you the keys to a more powerful and authentic way of being. The first of these rules addresses the very foundation of this philosophy, the strategic imperative of secrecy and the art of constructing your empire away from the public gaze. We now arrive at the first foundational law of this silent rebellion. Rule number 1, build your empire in secret. This principle commands you to treat your most cherished ambitions as state secrets, to place them in a vault where no outside gaze can reach them. Think of your goal not as a banner to be flown, but as a rare and delicate seed. It cannot be planted in the common field, exposed to the trampling feet of opinion and the unpredictable weather of public sentiment. Instead, it must be nurtured in a hidden greenhouse, a sacred space where the conditions are perfectly controlled by its sole protector, you. This secrecy is not born of fear, but of reverence. It is the understanding that the most powerful creations begin their lives in the dark, where their roots can grow deep and strong before they ever reach for the sun. The psychological mechanism behind this rule is known as premature satisfaction. When you announce a goal and receive positive feedback, likes, praise, encouragement, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine. This is the same neurotransmitter responsible for the feeling of reward you get upon actual completion. Your mind, in its elegant efficiency, gets tricked into feeling that a significant part of the journey has already been traveled. The social applause serves as a neurological down payment on a success you have not yet earned. This dangerously depletes the reserve of motivation required for the grueling, unglamorous, and often lonely work of execution. You have, in essence, sold the movie rights to a film that has not yet been written, spending the advance on the fleeting thrill of being seen as a director. Furthermore, exposing your nascent plans to the world is like placing a fragile seedling in a hurricane. Opinions are the wind and rain. Even well-intentioned advice can sow crippling seeds of doubt, altering your original vision before it has had a chance to solidify. Are you sure that's the right market? Have you considered this other, safer path? This feedback, offered with care, can unintentionally dilute your focus and erode your conviction. And then there is the more insidious element, envy. The quiet resentment or overt criticism from others can act as a poison to your resolve. Your dream, in its infancy, is a pure concentration of your own belief. It is too vulnerable and too sacred to be subjected to a jury of your peers, many of whom are judging from a place of their own fears and limitations. Therefore, this strategic silence is not an act of passive concealment. It is an active, aggressive cultivation of focus. It creates a vacuum sealed off from external noise, a private laboratory where the only variable is your own effort. Inside this space, a powerful transformation occurs. The desire for your goal, no longer dissipated through talk, intensifies. It builds an internal pressure that can only be released through action. Your vague wish hardens into an unbreakable contract with yourself. You are no longer trying to convince others of your vision. You are entirely consumed with the task of building it. This silent, focused pressure is the crucible where casual interest is forged into obsessive commitment, the very engine of extraordinary achievement. The world doesn't need to know what you are building until the gates of the empire are ready to be opened. This commitment to secrecy is embodied in the quiet, consistent rituals of your daily life. It is the closed journal on your nightstand, its pages filled with plans known only to you. It is the pre-dawn hour when you work on your project while the world sleeps, your progress witnessed by no one. It is the polite but firm, "I'm working on a few personal projects," when asked about your ambitions. This isn't deception. It is a profound act of self-respect. You are signaling to yourself that your goal is too important to be used as a conversational token. You become the sole guardian of the flame, and in this sacred duty, you discover a strength you never knew you possessed. The power is not in the announcement, but in the quiet, monastic dedication to the unseen work. This leads us directly to the second rule, a necessary consequence of the first. Rule number 2. Fire the external judge. This is the discipline of permanently resigning from the job of comparing your life, your progress, and your results to anyone else's. The only benchmark that holds any true value, the only metric that can lead to genuine growth, is your own past self. Your journey is a race of one. The goal is not to be ahead of others, but to be ahead of the person you were yesterday. This requires a radical shift in perspective, a conscious decision to avert your gaze from the dazzling, curated highlight reels of those around you and to focus it squarely on the granular day-to-day process of your own incremental improvement. You must dismiss the courtroom of social opinion and become your own, and only, judge. The very architecture of our digital world is built on the fallacy of comparison. Social media is not a window into reality. It is a museum of polished artifacts. You are scrolling through a gallery of finished paintings, vacation photos, and career victories, while you are intimately aware of your own messy behind-the-scenes process, the doubts, the blank canvas, the failed attempts. This asymmetry creates a cognitive distortion, an unwinnable game where you constantly measure your raw, unedited footage against someone else's final cut. This habit is the architect of modern anxiety, a silent poison that convinces you that you are perpetually behind, perpetually inadequate. Firing the external judge means recognizing this game is rigged and refusing to play. It's understanding that their finish line has absolutely no bearing on your track. To break free, you must cultivate the art of the internal benchmark. This is a private accounting system where the only competitor is your past performance. Did you write one more paragraph today than yesterday? Did you hold your focus for 5 minutes longer? Did you choose the harder, more meaningful task over the easier distraction? These are the real victories. They are small, unglamorous, and completely invisible to the outside world, but they are the bedrock of all significant achievement. This mindset fosters a sustainable, compounding growth. It builds a powerful, quiet momentum fueled by a series of small, private wins. Your journey has its own unique terrain and its own unique timeline. To honor it is to stop looking at other people's maps. Make no mistake, this is a discipline that requires relentless practice. The impulse to compare is a deeply ingrained human tendency, amplified 1,000-fold by technology. It is a mental addiction. Breaking it requires a conscious and repeated act of will. It is the discipline of catching yourself as your thumb hovers over an app and redirecting that energy into your own work. It is the practice of converting every pang of envy into a question. What is one small thing I can do right now to move my own project forward? It is a quiet, internal martial art where you learn to block the incoming blows of comparison and redirect that force into your own deliberate action. This is not easy, but it is essential. It is the daily work of reclaiming your focus. The reward for this difficult work is nothing short of liberation. When you truly fire the external judge, a vast reserve of mental and emotional energy is unlocked. The headspace once occupied by envy, anxiety, and the performance of progress becomes available for actual progress. A profound sense of calm descends. You are no longer running someone else's race, no longer dancing for the approval of a faceless crowd. You are instead engaged in the deeply satisfying work of building something real, something for yourself. This gives rise to a quiet, unshakable confidence that is not dependent on praise or position. It is the confidence of the craftsman who knows the quality of his own work, regardless of who is watching. This is the freedom of being the architect, the builder, and the sole appraiser of your own life. Having sealed our ambitions from the outside world and fired the comparative judge, we must now turn inward and claim our sovereignty. This brings us to rule number 3. You are the architect and the client. This is the principle of radical ownership, rooted in the psychological concept of an internal locus of control. It is the unwavering belief that you are the primary causal agent in your own life. While the world provides the circumstances, the raw material, and the terrain, you and you alone are the one who draws the blueprint, lays the foundation, and raises the walls. This rule demands that you abandon the seductive comfort of blame and adopt the fierce, liberating power of total responsibility for your actions, your reactions, and ultimately, your results. You are not a passive observer of your fate. You are its chief designer. The distinction between an internal and an external locus of control is the fault line that separates a life of agency from a life of passivity. A person with an external locus sees their destiny as something shaped by outside forces, the economy, their boss, their upbringing, sheer luck. They are a leaf in the wind, perpetually at the mercy of currents they cannot control. Conversely, an individual with an internal locus views these same external factors not as determinants, but as a set of conditions to be navigated. They believe their success or failure hinges on their own choices, their effort, their ingenuity. The former asks, "Why is this happening to me?" while the latter asks, "What am I going to do about this?" To claim this power is to understand that taking 100% responsibility is not a burden, but the ultimate expression of personal freedom. Every time you blame an external factor, you are implicitly stating that you are powerless to change your situation. You hand over your agency to the very thing you are blaming. The moment you say, "This is my responsibility," you reclaim that power. It doesn't mean you are at fault for every misfortune, but it means you are responsible for your response. This shift is the single most empowering move one can make. It transforms you from a character in a story written by others into the author, holding the pen with the authority to write the next chapter exactly as you see fit. Our minds, however, are masterful lawyers, paid to defend the ego at all costs. They construct intricate and compelling arguments for why we are not to blame, why the circumstances were unfair, why failure was inevitable. The discipline of this rule is to become a relentless prosecutor of your own excuses. It is the practice of greeting every setback with a rigorous internal cross-examination. What was my role in creating this outcome? What decision could I have made differently? What can I learn from this to ensure a better result next time? This is not self-flagellation. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is the honest accounting required to build anything of lasting value, and it marks the transition from intellectual childhood to true psychological adulthood. Imagine life gives you a plot of land. It might be a steep, rocky hillside. The person with an external locus will spend their life complaining about the rocks, the difficult slope, and the unfairness of their allotment. They may never even start building. But the architect, the one with an internal locus, sees the terrain as a creative challenge. They will design a house with stunning views precisely because of the slope. They will use the excavated rocks to build beautiful, sturdy, retaining walls. They don't deny the difficulty of the terrain. They simply accept it as the starting point and bend their will and ingenuity to creating something magnificent upon it. The world gives you the raw material. It is your unwavering responsibility to be the architect who transforms it. This deep sense of ownership naturally leads to the fourth rule, which addresses where we derive our sense of accomplishment. Rule number 4, you must become your own source of validation. After dismissing the external judge, a void is created. This rule is about learning to fill that void from within. It is the cultivated skill of recognizing your own efforts, acknowledging your own progress, and celebrating your own victories without any need for an external chorus of approval. You must learn to be both the performer and the sole appreciative audience. This is not about arrogance or ego. It is about developing a stable internal system of self-worth that is not dependent on the notoriously fickle and unreliable feedback of the outside world. This practice is critical because a dependence on external praise is a profound form of weakness. When you need a compliment to feel good about your work, your self-esteem is not truly yours. It is a borrowed commodity, on loan from the opinions of others. You have outsourced the most intimate measure of your value, making your inner peace a fragile thing that can be shattered by a single critical comment, or even worse, by silence. Your sense of self becomes a flickering candle, susceptible to being extinguished by the slightest breeze of disapproval. To build a robust inner life, you must replace that candle with a self-sustaining internal furnace, one that generates its own heat and light, regardless of the external weather. This is the path to unshakable self-reliance. The mechanics of self-validation are built through small, consistent, private rituals. It is the conscious practice of pausing after completing a difficult task, not to post about it, but to simply close your eyes and say to yourself, "That was hard and I did it well." It is keeping a private evidence journal, where you log your small wins of the day, the workout you didn't skip, the difficult conversation you handled with grace, the hour of focused work you protected from distraction. This process retrains your brain to seek and recognize internal evidence of your competence and discipline. You are systematically teaching yourself that your own sober, private acknowledgement is the most meaningful reward you can receive, far more potent than any fleeting digital applause. For many, the default internal monologue is that of a harsh, unforgiving critic. It magnifies failures and dismisses successes as mere luck. The work of this rule is to consciously retrain that inner voice, to transform it from a critic into a firm but compassionate internal coach. A coach still pushes you to meet high standards and doesn't let you off the hook, but it also acknowledges genuine effort. It frames failure not as an indictment of your character, but as a valuable data point, a lesson on how to improve the next attempt. This inner coach is your wisest and most loyal mentor, the part of you that champions your growth and understands that progress is a messy, non-linear process filled with both struggle and triumph. Mastering the art of auto-generated validation culminates in the development of a truly unshakable core of self-worth. Your value as a person and the quality of your efforts are no longer fluctuating stocks on the public market of opinion. They become a solid, internal asset, a form of wealth that no one can give you and no one can take away. This is the quiet, profound confidence of the master craftsman who doesn't need to be told his work is good. He simply knows. It is a state of true self-possession. You are no longer performing for validation because you have finally become the source of it. Your inner world becomes a fortress of stability, providing the calm and focus needed to do your life's greatest work. We have now arrived at the final and most vital principle, the keystone that locks the entire structure of silent achievement into place. This is the rule that transmutes philosophy into reality. Rule number 5, let deliberate action be your only language. This principle demands that you cease all communication through promises, plans, and proclamations, and instead speak only through the undeniable eloquence of your deeds. Words are wind. They are a cheap and inflated currency in a world drowning in them. Consistent, focused action is the only gold standard, the only tangible proof of your intent. It is the understanding that the most profound statement you can ever make is not uttered with your voice, but demonstrated with your effort. Let your work ethic become your sole spokesman. Consider the stark contrast between these two forms of expression. Words are abstract, ethereal, and weightless. They live in the hypothetical realm of the future, a place of infinite potential but zero substance. Actions, however, are concrete, real, and heavy with consequence. They are the hammer striking the nail, the pen moving across the page, the weight being lifted from the rack. Each deliberate action is an irrefutable vote cast for the person you aspire to become. It is a physical inscription on the timeline of your life, a piece of evidence that cannot be argued with. While 1,000 people can talk about writing a novel, the person who sits down and silently writes 500 words a day is the only one whose story will ever be read. This philosophy is perfectly captured in the metaphor of building a great cathedral. Such a monumental structure does not rise from a series of grand announcements or committee meetings about its future magnificence. It rises from the simple, repetitive, and profoundly silent act of a stonemason, laying one brick perfectly upon another, day after day, for years. The final, awe-inspiring result that touches the heavens is nothing more than the accumulated sum of millions of these individual, unseen, uncelebrated moments of focused labor. This is the heart of the 5th rule, to fall in love with the unglamorous process of laying the next brick, knowing that the cathedral of your success will be its inevitable, magnificent consequence. This requires a fundamental shift from being merely goal-oriented to becoming obsessively process-oriented. Our goal is a point in the distant future, a destination that can feel impossibly far away, often leading to overwhelm and procrastination. The process, however, is the path directly beneath your feet, the single task in front of you in this very moment. By shifting your entire focus to executing the immediate step with excellence, you make the grand journey manageable. You learn to find satisfaction not in the imagined future victory, but in the gritty, real-time engagement with the work itself. The outcome, the goal, ceases to be an object of anxiety and instead becomes the natural byproduct of a process you have come to respect and even enjoy. The silence cultivated by the previous 4 rules creates the perfect crucible for this relentless action. When you build in secret, you have no audience to perform for. When you fire the external judge, you have no comparison to distract you. When you claim total responsibility, you have no excuses to hide behind. And when you generate your own validation, you have no need for external applause. In this pristine, quiet space, stripped of all diversions, what is left? Only the work. The silence is not empty. It is a space filled to the brim with potent, undistracted, highly concentrated action. It is a strategic void where your full power, once scattered across a dozen vanities, can finally be gathered and aimed like a spear at your single most important objective. And here lies the crucial turning point, the moment of painful but illuminating insight. Consider with unflinching honesty the vast reserves of energy you have expended in the performance of your ambition. Tally the hours spent crafting the perfect announcement, the mental cycles dedicated to imagining the praise you would receive, the time invested in explaining your grand plans to anyone who would listen. Now, imagine if every single joule of that energy had been redirected. Imagine if instead of talking about the 5-mile run, you had simply put on your shoes and run one. Imagine if instead of designing the logo for your business, you had made one more sales call. This is the staggering opportunity cost of noise. It is the ghost of a more disciplined, more successful self. This realization is the climax of our journey. It is the sudden, gut-wrenching and liberating clarity that the loudest, most powerful, most persuasive statement you will ever make in your entire life is a finished project. It is a mastered skill. It is a transformed body. It is a profitable business. It is a degree hanging on the wall. These things possess an authority that no speech, no matter how eloquent, can ever hope to achieve. They do not require a spokesman because they are their own thunderous declaration. The work, once completed, speaks for itself in a language that everyone understands, the language of results. The silence was never about hiding. It was about building something so real and so substantial that it would eventually shatter that silence with its own undeniable existence. With this insight, your entire relationship to the world of sound is permanently reconfigured. You begin to differentiate between the cheap noise of intention and the earned noise of accomplishment. The chatter of plans becomes irritating, a grating reminder of energy being squandered. But the roar of a crowd at a finish line, the ring of a cash register, the round of applause for a product well launched, that noise is different. It is authentic. It is the natural, inevitable echo of 1,000 hours of disciplined silence. It is the sound that the world makes when it is forced to react to something real that you have brought into being. You learn to despise the first type of noise and work only for the right to hear the second. The transformation is now complete. The viewer, the architect, no longer fears the quiet. You now understand that silence is not a void, but a sanctuary, not an absence, but your most powerful strategic ally. The burning need to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged before the fact has been extinguished and replaced by a calm, monastic focus on the task at hand. Your new guiding principle is simple. Move in silence. Let your ambition be a private vow, your work a secret ritual. Let the world continue its noisy performance, its theater of intentions. You have opted out of that play. You are too busy in the workshop, laying the next brick, knowing that when your cathedral is finally finished, its shadow will be all the introduction it ever needs. So we end where we began, with the profound and challenging paradox of our time. In a world that screams for constant visibility, true, unshakable power is forged in disciplined silence. These 5 rules are not merely a productivity system. They are a declaration of independence for your soul. They represent a conscious retreat from the deafening noise of the digital arena into the quiet sanctuary of your inner world. It is the choice to stop performing the process and to instead become completely absorbed by it. It is the art of becoming strategically invisible so that you can construct something of such immense and undeniable substance that it will one day cast a shadow over everything else. This path is not for the faint of heart, but it is the only path to a victory that is truly your own. Let there be no misunderstanding. This philosophy of silence is not a call for a lonely or antisocial existence. It is not about severing human connection, but about protecting the delicate process of creation. Think of it as building a clean room for your ambitions. The most advanced technologies are assembled in environments free from contamination, and so too must be your greatest goals. This strategic quiet is an act of profound self-respect, a boundary you draw around your dreams to shield them from the airborne contaminants of doubt, envy, and premature praise. It is a loving act of guardianship for your own potential, ensuring that the thing you are building is pure, strong, and entirely a product of your own undiluted vision. The journey you choose to walk defines the power you accumulate. The power derived from external validation is a fickle and fleeting thing. It is a currency minted by others, and its value can plummet overnight. It makes you a slave to the algorithm of approval, constantly chasing the next hit of affirmation. The power forged in the furnace of silence, however, is of a different quality entirely. It is an internal asset, a permanent part of your being, owned wholly by you. It is the quiet, calm confidence of the master who knows their craft intimately versus the loud anxiety of the celebrity who fears being forgotten. This path asks you to choose mastery over fame, substance over shadow, and internal certainty over external applause. As we draw to a close, you are left with a single, reverberating question. What if the life you truly, desperately want to live, the one filled with purpose, accomplishment, and a deep sense of peace, is currently buried beneath the rubble of the life you have been performing for others? What if your greatest work, Your most authentic self is waiting patiently in the quiet for you to finally turn away from the noise and listen. The distance between the person you present to the world and the person you are in absolute solitude is the measure of your internal conflict. Closing that gap is the great work of your life, and it is a work that can only be done in the sacred space of silence. So here is the final challenge, an invitation to conduct a private experiment. Choose one goal. Just one. It can be small or monumental. It does not matter. Now make a solemn promise to yourself that the only person on this planet who will know of this ambition until the very moment it is complete is you. Do not speak of it. Do not hint at it. Do not write about it publicly. Channel every ounce of your desire and energy into the silent, daily act of its execution. Let it be your secret source of strength, your private pact with your own potential. Then, and only then, will you truly understand. Discover the immense, world-shaping power that lives inside a secret.